welcome to the Scholar Progenium. Today we've got a bolt action tactics video for you where we're going to be talking about the Crusader Mark III anti-aircraft tank. Now this is a fantastic little unit, it's very fun, it's effective in a certain couple of roles on the battlefield which make it certainly worth its points. It's very cheap, it doesn't compromise on much in terms of units in your list, so it's not going to take out too many points. It's only 135 points. It's got some interesting history to it, and so we'll be talking about all of that today. So what is this vehicle? Well, essentially around the Normandy campaign and invasion, in the run-up to it, there were a lot of these chassis, these Crusader Mark IIIs, that were sort of defunct. They were no longer going to be useful against the type of weaponry that they knew they would be facing in Western Europe. So they didn't want to use them on the front lines as infantry support vehicles or main attack battle tanks or anything like that. So they had to repurpose them, or they thought we may as well repurpose them. So a few of the tanks, I think it was about 70, it wasn't loads, were converted into these vehicles, and they were equipped with two 60-round belt-fed 20mm autocannons, which were sort of intended to fight against German air support on the battlefield in Normandy. Now, American air superiority was so vast and so overwhelming that the Luftwaffe didn't really have a chance, and so these guys didn't really play any significant role in the anti-air defence. However, a fair few of them were given to the Polish 1st Armoured Battalion, I believe it was, and so those guys did actually use them in France in a ground support role, and they were, I guess, shooting up defensive positions with the autocannons, which is super cool, and it's a common tactic employed in sort of various battlefields today, using light autocannons to support infantry. So those guys were certainly ahead of their time, and this unit, it is very good at doing that job, and it's very good at anti-aircraft as well. So we're going to be talking a bit more about its uses on the battlefield in bolt action now. So rules wise, this tank is a light tank, so it's armour 8+, so it's 7 on the sides, and it's armed with just 2 light autocannons. So no machine gun. I believe that in real life it did have a light machine gun attached to it, but on bolt action it doesn't. Now that puts it in an interesting position, because you can get a lot of tanks that have a light gun, like a light anti-tank gun or even a medium anti-tank gun, that are competing with this in the tank slot, that also could field 2 machine guns, which is, for the Allies, that's going to be 10 shots. So that is a lot of Dakka, and this is a Dakka tank. So is it outcompeted just by the average tank in terms of Dakka? Well, I would say no, for a couple of interesting reasons. So first of all, it's got a range of 48 inches, and that 24-inch half range puts it at a distinct advantage when shooting at units and spraying at them, so to speak, which puts it ahead of every other tank in terms of range. Their half range is 18 inches, and that's a big bonus in terms of hitting. So not only that, but it's also got +1 pen when you use the HE shot, and it's got 1-inch template, so a couple of hits will get you sort of a couple of hits from the cannon will probably get you 3 hits on an infantry squad or a support unit or something like that, and those 3 hits will have +1 pen on them, which is much better than a machine gun, obviously. So it means that you're killing veterans on a 4 and regular units on a 3+, which gives you an advantage. And then on top of all of that, it also does D2 pins, which doesn't go off half the time, but half the time it does go off. And getting 2 pins from one unit just from a bit of Dakka again, is an advantage over a machine gun tank. So it does outcompete the normal Dakka of a tank. So if you're taking a tank mainly for the Dakka and shooting at not other tanks, then this unit is certainly one to consider. Now, the tactics do go even a little bit deeper than that. So what is this unit really useful against? Well, if you're having dreams, you're looking at this unit, you're looking at the assault, the autocannons, and you're having dreams of just spraying down hordes of infantry. You know, you face off against your friends, Russians or Japanese, or just hordes of Osttroopen or whatever, then it's not going to do that job. Now, the rules for multiple small 1-inch templates are somewhat restrictive in that you have to place each template touching another template. So if I got 3 hits with this, each 1-inch template would have to touch another one, which gives it sort of diminishing returns. You want to really be using this in a hunter role, and what I would recommend is using it to hunt down units such as howitzers, mortars, just any fixed team, or anti-tank gun. And why is it particularly good in this role? Well, that 48-inch range or the 24-inch half range means that you can quite quickly maneuver into position and shoot and effectively hit, because you've got 4 dice to get into that half range quite easily, which is unlike when you're spraying off a burst from a tank. If you want to get your tank within 18 inches, you're then sort of overexposing it a little bit and putting it at risk of anti-tank fire, whereas you can often find yourself getting angles where you're safe and can't be seen from their anti-tank options. However, you can put shots on the units that you want to hunt down. And so you spray at that unit, you're hitting on 5s and 6s, and so that's the sort of area you want to be aiming for. You want to be aiming to hit units on 5s and 6s, so line yourself up for that. And then you'll get a couple of hits, usually at least 1 hit, and that can be enough to knock out a mortar easily, because you've got that +1 pen. If it's inexperienced, you're going to be killing them on 2s. If it's regular, you'll be killing the men on 3s, because you've got that +1 pen from the high explosive. And just 1 template, 1 hit is enough to hit 2 of the guys on a mortar or a howitzer or something like that. And if you get lucky and you get 2 hits, then you're going to be hitting probably 3 or even 4 if it's a artillery piece like a howitzer, just because they all have to be placed within 2 inches of the breech. So that 1 inch, placing your 1-inch templates touching each other is less restrictive against field guns, which makes it even better at that hunter role. And then you're going to roll a lot of hit dice against those guys, a lot of wound dice, and you're probably going to do a lot of damage. And then because you've got that chance to get that extra pin and get D2 pins, and because you're quite likely to kill half of the units, half of the crew or more, you're probably going to force them to take a runaway check. And it's those layers and tiers of that could happen. Although each factor in itself isn't necessarily reliable, the extra +1 pin, it doesn't guarantee, when using high explosive, doesn't guarantee that you're going to just wipe out everyone in the squad. It's not like +2 or +3. The D2 pins doesn't guarantee you're going to have like loads of pins. It's just like potentially an extra 1. But it all does stack together, and against small units of up to sort of 5 men, let's say they've got an LMG squad of 5 regular men just camped out in a little bit of cover, you can spray at those guys, get a couple of hits on them, kill 3 of them, 2 to 3 of them, and potentially make them run away, or at least get their heads really heavily ducked down. They might not run away, but you might get the D2 pins on them and really impact their accuracy. The next time they want to shoot or even activate, it might force them down. So all those little bits just combine together. So you sort of capitalise on that extra range, that 24-inch half range, which really does make a difference. You capitalise on the fact that he can just sort of dart around. He's very small and low profile. You can hide him in places, get him around the flanks of things. Now, obviously, he is not going to be fighting in any tank duels, but he is actually very effective at shooting at trucks, but that would be I would only ever shoot at soft-skinned vehicles with it. Now, a couple of extra notes just to be aware of, which make this unit just the absolute cherry on the cake of this unit, and they take it up to the next level. So a couple of extra things to be aware of. So first of all, it is not open-topped. Now, you may be like, oh, well, that's no big deal. Loads of things aren't open-topped. But the fact of the matter is that a lot of its peers, which carry light autocannons, are open-topped. Whether it's the Wirbelbin that's got more shots or whatever, a lot of these light autocannon Dakka vehicles, Dakka trucks for the Americans, whatever you've got, your heavy MGs, whatever it may be, they're often open-topped, which means that the units that whilst they're on their mission to do their job and Dakka stuff up, they can be pinned out, and that really reduces their accuracy, really reduces their effectiveness. But this guy's, you can just really tell the difference with him being fully enclosed. One extra really nice tidbit of a rule that just takes this guy to the premium creme de la creme level, which makes him so addictive and so useful. And that is the final tier of what ifs, which is that against artillery units, you all may be aware that exceptional damage from small arms fire, so getting a 6 followed by a 6, doesn't wipe out the whole unit like it would for a machine gun. However, artillery units such as howitzers and even anti-tank guns and so on and so forth, they can actually be destroyed by a 6 followed by a 6 if it's not small arms fire, if it's a heavy weapon. Now, that is going to come into play once in a blue moon when you're firing mortars or other HE and heavy weapons at these units. However, it's not uncommon. It is uncommon, but it's not rare. It's not outside the realms of possibility to actually get a 6 to wound with this guy followed by another 6, because you are putting out enough shots. And, you know, over the course of a tournament, you will occasionally get that burst. You know, it does happen occasionally, so just be aware of that rule. Yeah, he's quite versatile in his own little way. As I said, not going to mow down hordes of infantry, but again, your opponent doesn't actually know that. And, you know, your first impression, my first impression is, you know, this guy's going to mow down hordes of infantry. But, you know, that is obviously what your opponent might think. So this guy's presence also does really hold down a flank. So I'm not saying like suicide charge him in right up close. He's only armor 8, he can be taken out quite easily. But 135 points, you're not going to break a sweat if this guy does get knocked out. It's not a huge portion of your list. Now, obviously, when taking this guy, you are going to have to take some other anti-armor options. So he sort of does come with a stealth tack. I take a 17-pounder a lot of the time, and so this guy pairs really well with a 17-pounder because I've got that super heavy anti-tank gun. I've got my anti-tank option sorted, so I can use my tank slot to just really lean into the anti-Dakka. That's what I really like about this tank. Is I don't like tanks that are kind of middle of the road. I like a tank that really leans into various aspects. So this guy, he really leans into that anti-infantry. He really leans into like that taking out fixed position role in terms of the way he works. And then his armor is only 8 up, so although he's totally impervious to infantry and the kind of stuff that might defend against him on a little flank or something like that. But if they want to commit their tank to hunt this guy down, their tank's going to be a lot more points, and it's going to be out of the battlefield, or, you know, you can just draw things away, you can bait it away. The tactical options and the ability to be just like a cunning menace with this guy is just limitless. There's just no end to it. So, you know, I absolutely love this vehicle. It's so fun to use, really effective, and I just, you know, cannot recommend him enough. So yeah, guys, that is the Crusader Mark III anti-air option. That's everything you need to know about him, all the little tips and tricks and little rules that come into effect when using him that you need to be aware of. So I hope you found this video interesting. I hope you found it entertaining. This has been the Scholar Progenium. Thank you very much for your time. Goodbye.